What's going on, guys? My name is Royal, and today I'm going to be giving a review on The Division. I'm doing this in an effort to help people either save money or make an informed decision on buying a new game that is $60. If you guys are interested in some raw gameplay to make your decision, go in the description down below. Check out my Twitch channel as well as my second channel for raw gameplay. I'm going to be breaking the game down into 5 categories, and each category, the game will be able to earn 2 points, eventually giving the game a score of 10 or less. More specifically for Tom Clancy's The Division, I'm going to be splitting it into story, single-player gameplay, multiplayer gameplay, replayability, and how it runs and kind of the graphics and overall feel of the game. All the gameplay you're about to see is from my most recent livestream where I played about 5 or 6 hours of the game. So first is Category 1, Story. The game takes place after a Black Friday event where smallpox has infected most of New York. You're a part of an elite federal group of people called the Division. Your job is to take back the city from everything from cleaners to bandits to riots and gangs. Pretty much your job is to make the city no longer chaotic and put in this group of people to be able to maintain the order. The full story missions can take anywhere from 12 to 18 hours depending on how quickly you go through them, if you're playing with friends, more than 2 friends, or if you're playing alone. And the story mostly unfolds when you do the main missions of the game, and you can find out some more story by doing some side missions, as well as finding some flashbacks and like little Easter egg cell phones that kind of tell a story, as well as things called evidence, which is just cameras where you can see through the eyes of cameras and dash cams and that kind of stuff from before the epidemic happened. In my honest opinion, I'm probably going to give this 1.5 out of 2 points, mainly because I just don't really feel attached to the story at all. There is a lot of things that lead you to want to discover the story and a lot of questions that you want answered. The story just isn't that engaging and it's not that crazy that I just don't really feel like it's a necessary thing for the game to make it a fun game. So again, I'm going to give that 1.5 points out of 2. And we're going to continue on to the single-player gameplay portion. So the single-player obviously has to do a little bit with the story. But honestly, there's not much to say about the single-player. It's kind of not as fun to play alone in this game as it would be to play with other people. You can still play the game, and it's not really that difficult, and it can be difficult if you skip ahead and go to the higher-level missions before you actually should be going there. But it's really just not a single-player game, in my honest opinion. So really, if you don't have friends to play with, I don't know if I would recommend this game to you unless you really like what you see in the gameplay footage. On most occasions, if you go to any Twitch streamer, any YouTuber's channel, he is playing with somebody. And that means and says a lot. So that's why I'm probably going to give it 1 point out of 2, mainly because it's just not really that fun alone, in my opinion. That leads us to the bread and butter of the game, which is the multiplayer gameplay. This is where the game really thrives and makes me want to play more. I currently play with my brother and Daft Bastard and codename Ace a lot more, and it's just so much fun. The group dynamic of having somebody that uses DPS that runs up close and personal with an SMG, does a lot of max damage. There's somebody up top in the back throwing turrets that are going to shoot flamethrowers and tasers at people. And then there's a sniper up on the house that's shooting down at the guys. And just the group dynamic and how fun it is to kind of like work together to get a common objective done and to level up and get this really awesome loot that upgrades your character as you progress into the game. On top of that, there is player versus player, which is called the Dark Zone. Essentially, you enter the Dark Zone in a certain part of the city. In the Dark Zone, you will kill AI and they will drop loot. And then when you get this loot, you have to go to an extraction point in which you extract the loot. What other people are trying to do is trying to kill you for your loot so that they can extract it, and you can get some pretty decent guns out of this that you can also use in your single-player world. Although the Dark Zone is fun, honestly, if you're not a PvP person, the co-op portion of the game is extremely fun and more than worth it. And going back to the co-op portion, there's also different difficulties on specific missions. So you can actually play a hard mode of a mission to unlock better loot, face harder enemies, and give a little bit even more group dynamic where you actually have to work together, use your skills appropriately to defeat the really, really hard enemies. But in the end, you get really, really good loot, and it just becomes a really fun experience for everybody. That's why I'm going to give this portion of the game a 2 out of 2. So on that high note, we're going to get to a part of the game that is quite lacking, and that is replayability. So by the time you beat the game, you're around level 27, 28. So with the max level being 30, you can run side missions, you can do some encounters to rank up to the highest level. On top of that, you can also level yourself up in the Dark Zone. Once you've played enough of the game and your max rank in the Dark Zone as well as in single player, there is absolutely no point whatsoever to go back and be like, you know what, I'm gonna go play the game again. Like I said, the story is relatively lackluster. You don't really want to redo the story, and you don't really want to create another character and go through the steps again. And that's mainly because it's really easy to respec your class into a DPS health or skill-based range. It's not hard. You can respin different loot to get different items to be better for specific situations. And there's really just no point in creating another character. I will never feel the need to go back. The only thing that's keeping this section alive, I would say, is DLC. If DLC introduced more story, more level caps, and things like that, new items, new different types of weapon variants, I will definitely be heading back into the game. Will I be creating a new character to do the DLC with? Probably not. I will be using the current character that I'm using, and that's why I'm going to have to give replayability a 0.5 out of 2. So now we're going to get into how it runs, how it feels, and just like the overall aura that the game gives off. So we're going to begin with how it runs. So obviously it uses the Uplay client, which always brings issues. On launch day around midnight, they had a lot of server stability issues. Servers are going up and down, but that's normal. That kind of happens with every game nowadays because they can never tell how many people are actually going to be playing at midnight until it actually comes. But there are several errors that just kind of pop up and get in the way often, so I'm going to have to deduct a little bit of points for that, but other than that, there's really no issues at all with performance. I get 60 FPS even on some really high settings, and I bet a decent computer could easily run this game on low settings. It's not an issue. It is very well optimized. I would go onto Steam and get a little bit above minimum or get to recommended if you're going to be buying this game. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody with really low-end PCs. But then there's the graphics and the overall feel of the game. So this post-epidemic New York world is extremely beautiful, and it takes place right after Black Friday, around Christmas time. There's a lot of blizzards, there's a lot of snow, a lot of lights, really tall buildings. Everything feels very vertical, and you feel very, very small, and it just is a great environment and really fun to run around in and look up, explore different buildings, and the overall feel is just amazing. And on top of that, if you have some good PC specs, you can really, really enjoy the shit out of this game. If you can get a 4K monitor and a really good PC, the screenshots that you'd be able to pull from this game would be absolutely nuts. With that in mind, we're going to give this a 1.5 out of 2. So my overall score of this game is a 6.5 out of 10. But don't take that harshly. Honestly, I love the game. It's extremely fun if you have a group of friends to play with. The only reason why I deducted a lot of points for certain things is because the story is pretty lackluster, it's not fun when you're playing alone, and honestly, these are just my full opinions. If I was you and you had 2 or 3 friends and they were all going to buy the game and you could start at the same time and make sure that you play on each other's schedules, you will have a ton of fun with this game. So if you thought I was too harsh, or you have your own opinion, or you think the game is worse or better than what I said, go into the comment section down below. Let people that are watching this video know what your opinions on the game are. There are also a few things that I didn't talk about in this video that might put you over one side of the fence if you're still undecided. This can be seen as good or bad, but there is a build system where you have DPS, health, and special ability damage. On top of that, when you craft and build new items, you have a chance of them getting specific abilities like LMG damage or more health on specific items like your ball drone or your turret that you can throw out. There's a lot more specific and very gruesome, in-depth min-maxing that can be done in the game. I wasn't going to talk about that or add that in anywhere because this is more of a buyer's guide and a beginner's guide, and once you get into the game that you'll find this stuff to be kind of substantial most of the time, but it really doesn't matter which direction you go. DPS is not better than high health, and high health is not better than low special damage. It doesn't really matter all that much. But I hope you guys enjoyed this review. If you guys are looking for some gameplay, you can check out my second channel or my Twitch channel in the description down below. Again, my name is Royal. This is my Division review, which I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. If you had your own opinions or you thought the score should be higher or lower, let me know in the comment section down below. As well, on top of that, if there's any upcoming games that you would like for me to review, go ahead and tell me in the comment section down below as well. Hopefully you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.